VAT is not going to work.
Okay, it's good.
Yep, recording.
Okay.
How are you?
Boker Tov, everyone. Very good Erev Shabbat. This Shabbat is Shabbat Shiur, and marks the conclusion of the story of the Jewish people being enslaved and freed from the land of Egypt. The Parsha ends on a somewhat disturbing note. The Parsha ends, Vayovel Amalek, Vayilochem im Yisrael b'Refidim. The word Vayovel, it came, the Gemara always interprets it, Mehechon hu ba. Where did he come from? What does it mean he came? There's, so to speak, a backstory here somewhere. And that he's coming out of this backstory. Bilam will say later, Reishis Goyim Amalek. Amalek is first amongst the nations. What does he mean by that? Because Amalek is not known for the particular accomplishments. What makes him first amongst the nations? So Rashi says here that the first is that even though he is aware that Jewish people are special, and that the Rivon Shalom Kaviyachol has taken them out of slavery, and that miraculous events have occurred, he doesn't care. So he, so to speak, Rashi says he cools off the enthusiasm by coming to attack the Jewish people. So Vayovel means he's coming from a worldview. He's coming from his understanding of world events and of his judgment as to what is right or wrong, and what is beneficial, and what is detrimental. Throughout history, problems have always arisen when there is a prejudgment, when we make up our minds not based on factual evidence, not based on rational thought, but we make mind that this is what we're supposed to do, that this is the best thing that we should pursue. And because of that, therefore, throughout history, we see mistakes, false assumptions that govern human events. Now, this week, everybody is talking about the fact that if you do the same thing over and over again, and it doesn't seem to work, that's insane. Why should you follow a policy that for 60, 70 years has not worked, and now it's going to happen? I mean, you see that in the world generally. I heard a lecture this week from, when it rains, you hear lectures. So a Marxist professor at one of the leading Ivy League colleges in the United States. And the thrust of his lecture was that communism really is the greatest, and that Marx was right, but that we always had the wrong people running it. So you had Lenin and Stalin, they were the wrong people. Chairman Mao was the wrong person. The guy in Venezuela was the wrong person. Castro was the wrong person. But basically, if you had the right person running it, would be paradise. That's if you have a preset view of life. And if you have that preset view, you are not willing to give it up easily because it affects your ego. The hardest things in life are to admit that one was wrong, that one assessed the situation incorrectly. And the beginning of all wisdom is the acknowledgement of the fact that one can be wrong. Reshis Chochma, beginning of wisdom, is to know that you could be wrong. It's not necessarily so. Now, Amalek has a preset idea. His idea is there is no special people in the world, no special nation. Everybody's the same. And that the mere claim that one nation can be superior to another nation in morality, in philosophy, in belief, goes against his understanding of the world. So Vayovel Amalek, if you have that preset idea, so naturally he's going to fight with the Jewish people. And naturally he's going to come to attempt and destroy them. Because according to his rationale, it couldn't be, it shouldn't have happened. The whole Sipur of Yetzias Mitzrayim, the story that the Torah tells us, is to emphasize to us God's control over events in the world. That's what Paro denies. I don't know God. Who's God? What has he got to do with this? And so the Makos came to instruct. It's not just to punish. To instruct as to how the world works. And in order to have that, you have to have faith. Vayaminu b'Hashem u'b'Moshe avdo. They believed, the Jewish people. Amalek doesn't believe. Amalek is convinced that everything is what it is on the surface, and that he can prevail. So you see that in the story that the Torah teaches us, that when Yoshua is making battle with Amalek, the day Moshe kvedim, Moshe's hands are heavy. What does it mean they're heavy? So literally, he couldn't keep raising his hands for hours at a time. No human being can. But part of the idea of Idei Moshe Kvedim is that the Jewish people shouldn't believe in Moshe either. Moshe's hands are heavy. Moshe is not going to get you out of this. And therefore, this whole exercise of Amalek is the test vayaminu b'Hashem, is the test in faith. And in life, every individual is faced with moments of test. Life is full of questions and obstacles. Nobody passes through it unscathed. And if you look at it in a general sense, so no nation, no country can escape the doubts that beset it. And therefore you have an undercurrent in every country throughout history of people who are not happy with their country, who doubt their country. Many say, my country was founded in sin. So there's no belief in the right of existence even, because we were wrong from the beginning. And it's that sense of, I won't even say guilt, but because it's righteousness, not just guilt. It's that sense that pervades a society that leads to its destruction. The Roman Empire fell when the Romans no longer believed that they had a right to an empire. People doubt their own existence. Now we see that by our mother Rivka, that she said, "In Cain Loma Ze Anochi." If this is the way the world is, the world of Esau and Yaakov, a world of constant strife, a world of disagreement, then what do I need this for? Loma Ze Anochi. What is, of what value is my life? People feel that way. You know, well, I'm one of 8 billion, so it makes a difference. So it says, she began to look to search for God, meaning she wanted to have this higher overview of what life is. What am I supposed to do here? And she comes to the conclusion, Shnei goyim bevitnei, shnei leumim The world will always be two different views, two different visions of what life is. And Amalek, who is related to Esav, is not willing to suffer that there should be another opinion, that the Jews should somehow have all of these miracles. So it's amazing. The Jews say in Shiur Shiur, Shomu Amim Yer Gozun, Chilach Az Yoshvei Ploshes, Ozni Valu Alufei Edom, Ele Moav Yochazemu Road. The whole world trembles when you say Yitzias Mitzrayim. So then how come Amalek comes? Where does Amalek have the inner strength, so to speak, to come to attack the Jewish people? The answer is that he had a preset mind. He's coming from his conceptions. And he has the conception that there's no special people. Well, Amalek contributes to Matan Torah. According to the Ramban and others, all of this happens before Matan Torah. The Jewish people are forced to decide whether they have the world vision of Amalek or whether they have a different world vision, different view of what life should contain. And it's not too much of an exaggeration to say that without Amalek, the Jewish people perhaps never would have reached the level of Nasev and Ishma, of choosing a different way. Because if the Jewish people turn around and everybody's afraid of them, everybody respects them, everybody says, can't be a greater people than this, so there'll be very little introspection. There'll be very little room for improvement. There'll be very little room for any advancement. We made it. So therefore, constantly the test is applied over and over again. I mentioned that many times that it's 380 years between Yoshua ben Nun and David ben Yishai, who becomes the Melech in Yerushalayim. That's a long time, 380 years. It's almost 91 presidential terms. So in the middle, we are always born in the middle. It's hard to see where we're going. Because we thought we won. Yoshua won already. The Shoftim won all the battles. Eli HaKohen won. Shmuel HaNavi killed Agag. And the Torah comes to teach us that we never completely win. Ad ki yavo Shiloh. Not until the end. Because this concept of preset ideas, of the fact that nobody is special, the fact that it's arrogant to even think so. This concept always exists. It's there from the beginning in Gan Eden. Adam Arishon is basically saying, who's God to tell me what to do? I recognize he created me, he sustained me, everything is good, but he can't tell me what to do. I do what I want to do. So perhaps there's no more fitting conclusion to the Parsha of Shiur Shiur, to the Parsha, to the Shabbos of Shiur, than the story of Amalek. We say that in the Haggadah, Shebechol Dor V'Dor Omdim Aleinu. It's an eternal struggle. No matter how many peace treaties you're going to sign, the basic struggle will not end. And being aware of that, it causes us to have proper responses. If we're not aware of that, then we do very foolish things, that later come to haunt us and to cost us very dearly. So it's not Moshe, the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah says, V'dei Moshe osim milchama, the Moshe's hand make the war. Moshe's hands are the symbol of the subservience of man to God. The symbol of the fact that it's milchama la'Hashem ba'Amalek midor dor. Every generation has its own Amalek. Come under different names, different theories, different societal concepts. But every generation has its Amalek. In a famous interview, Ben Gurion said that his generation would not see peace, but that the generation of his grandchildren would. So he made two assumptions. One, that he would have grandchildren living in the country. And the second assumption that he made was that somehow Amalek would come to terms, would agree to it. But here we are 8 decades later, and it's like the first day. Because Vayavo Amalek, the prejudgment exists, that Jews have no rights. That Jews by nature are inferior and infidels. Therefore, they have to be persecuted and destroyed. So it's a very sober Paarsha Beshalaach, because on one hand, it's the greatest of all miracles. The lowliest member of the Jewish people. So Shivcha Layom, she didn't go to Beis Yaakov, she didn't have an education, she didn't know anything. But she experienced godly greatness more than even the great prophet. That's on one hand. And on the other hand, the Jewish people will say, let us go back to Egypt. We're going to go back to Egypt. We're going to erase everything that happened. We're going to pretend it never happened. Because it only exposes us to greater difficulties. So again, the concluding pasuk is the pasuk that tells us, Milchama Hashem ba'Amalek v'dor dor. Every generation has its own Amalek. Every generation has its own wars. No one thought 50 years ago that there would have to be a war as to whether a man is a man or a woman is a woman. No one thought all sorts of other things that today exist. Because that's the strength of Amalek. Amalek renews itself because it has preconceptions about what life should be and about its ability to bring about its orders and ideas into general society. So we should realize that in our generation, we also are fighting Amalek. So Amalek is Hamas, Amalek is the United Nations, Amalek, to a great extent, is the extreme left, all based on preconceptions, all based on prejudgments as to what should be and what shouldn't be, and all based on the arrogance that somehow it has the perfect solutions for the problems that have beset society for millennia. That again leads to Matan Torah, to next week's Parsha. Once we recognize the existence of Amalek, and once we recognize that we are betoch hamilchama, that we're in the midst of this struggle, so then there's room for Naasev and Ishmael. If, however, we think that we're doing great and everything is perfect, and we have all the answers, so then what do we need it for? It's only a burden on ourselves. So again, the Torah does not deal with the past. The Torah deals with current events. The Torah deals with the world that we live in. What we should do, how we should see things. Sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes Moshe's hands are so heavy that he lowers them. And Amalek appears to be triumphant. We had that in our lifetime many times. The Shoah, October 7th, all of these things. But we should know that that's not permanent. That the Milchama, and it's Milchama Hashem ba'Amalek. It's not us. It's the concept of godliness, of goodness, that is at stake here. And that's midor dor. Every generation faces it, and every generation must triumph on its own. So Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Stay dry. Thank you for coming. Cold to zone.
If it's raining tonight, I may not come. Oh, not sure. Not sure. So then I have to go in a wheelchair and I get through. See. Weather. Very good. Yeah. There were people on the Zoom. There were people on the Zoom. Yeah. Stay warm. Very much. Thank you. Oh, he doesn't sound. Yes, sir. We was here a few weeks ago. Yeah, Baruch Hashem. Good to see you. Appreciate the share, of course. Thank you.
Thinking back to Muncie, when we used to give the Wednesday night tequila share.
That's right. Muncie was a good place.
Take a picture of the one.
Certainly.
Mhm.